When visiting Buckingham Palace, most tourists admire the royal guard's unwavering discipline from afar. But not Justin Carter. Fueled by arrogance and alcohol, he thought it'd be amusing to throw his drink at a royal guard to impress his friends. What Justin didn't realize was that this impulsive decision wouldn't just ruin his reputation. It would teach him a lesson he'd never forget. Late afternoon sunlight streamed gently over Buckingham Palace, casting a warm golden hue on its historic facade. Groups of tourists gathered around the gates, cameras ready, chatting excitedly, enjoying the dignified calm of London's most iconic landmark. Among them stood Justin Carter, a 24-year-old tourist from Chicago, visiting England with his group of college friends. Justin and his friends had spent most of the afternoon at a pub near Trafalgar Square. Now, emboldened by alcohol and youthful bravado, their mood was loud, brash, and increasingly disrespectful. As they wandered closer to Buckingham Palace, their laughter echoed loudly, drawing disapproving glances from other tourists. Justin spotted the royal guards immediately, tall, disciplined soldiers standing motionless at their posts, resplendent in scarlet uniforms, their famous bearskin hats adding impressive stature. Most tourists observed them from a respectful distance, marveling at their unwavering composure. But Justin only saw an opportunity for mischief. His friend Zach nudged him playfully. "Hey, Justin, how much would someone have to pay you to make one of these statue dudes move?" Justin laughed, glancing around at his friends who eagerly awaited his reaction. "Move? These guys don't move for anything. They're basically robots." Zach raised an eyebrow, challenging him further. "Come on, man, you're always bragging about how fearless you are. Prove it." The others chimed in, laughing, egging him on. Justin hesitated briefly, considering the idea. But pride and alcohol quickly overwhelmed any sense of caution. With a confident grin, he raised his nearly full cup, filled with sticky soda mixed with rum. "Fine. I'll get a reaction. Watch this." His friends erupted in excited cheers, already pulling out their phones to film the reckless spectacle. But nearby tourists overheard, their faces immediately filled with concern. A British woman shook her head, whispering anxiously to her husband, "He's going to regret this." Justin ignored the quiet warnings of those around him, moving boldly toward the nearest guard. He felt invincible, driven by laughter from his friends and the hazy bravado provided by alcohol. He didn't notice the disapproving stares or hear the murmured comments urging him to reconsider. He walked closer, stopping just a few feet away from the royal guard, whose disciplined stance and calm expression didn't falter even slightly. Justin waved his cup in the air dramatically, drawing attention. "Hey, buddy," he called mockingly. "I think you're looking thirsty standing there all day. Want some of this?" No response. The guard remained utterly still, eyes straight ahead. Justin laughed obnoxiously, turning back to his friends. "See, he's not even alive." Zach, still recording, shouted encouragingly, "Prove he's not! Splash him! See if he moves!" Justin's hesitation lasted only a second. His pride and the weight of peer pressure pushed him forward. Ignoring every instinct of respect, decency, and caution, he raised his cup, aiming deliberately toward the guard's pristine uniform. With a reckless flick of his wrist, the sticky drink flew through the air, splattering across the guard's chest and shoulder, staining the uniform instantly. The crowd gasped collectively, silence falling immediately over the scene. Justin's stomach tightened as realization hit him, but by then it was already too late. For a brief, painful second, absolute silence fell over the usually lively Buckingham Palace square. The sticky liquid dripped slowly down the guard's crisp, scarlet uniform, creating dark, humiliating stains. Every eye in the crowd turned toward Justin Carter, disbelief and anger filling their expressions. Justin's confident smile faded instantly, replaced by uncertainty and fear as the magnitude of his actions sank in. His heart pounded in his chest, adrenaline overtaking the earlier effects of alcohol. His friends, previously laughing, had gone completely silent, phones still recording, frozen in shock. A middle-aged British man nearby spoke loudly, disgust clear in his voice. "What an absolute disgrace." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. Another woman called sharply, "You should be ashamed of yourself!" Justin instinctively took a step back, eyes darting nervously. But pride, and perhaps lingering intoxication, stubbornly kept him from immediately retreating. Instead, he attempted a weak laugh, calling back defensively, "Relax, it's just a drink." Yet no one laughed. The royal guard stood motionless, his discipline impressively intact, eyes fixed straight ahead, not showing even a flicker of reaction. But the humiliation Justin had caused was clear to everyone watching. From behind Justin came Zach's worried voice, quieter now, nervousness evident. "Dude, seriously, that was too far. Let's get out of here." Justin hesitated, uncertainty gripping him. Around him, dozens of cameras pointed accusingly, capturing every second of his public disgrace. He felt trapped, his mind racing as embarrassment and panic took hold. Then, suddenly, a stern voice rang out sharply through the stunned silence. "Stay right where you are!" Justin spun around to see two Metropolitan Police officers rapidly approaching, their faces grim, expressions utterly serious. A ripple of approval passed through the crowd, several tourists nodding appreciatively, relieved that authority had finally arrived. Justin took another shaky step backward, raising his hands nervously, his bravado completely vanished. "Wait, officers, I'm sorry, it was just a stupid dare." The leading officer, tall and imposing, eyes filled with quiet fury, responded sharply, "Throwing a drink at a royal guard is assault and disrespect to military personnel. Put your hands behind your back now." Justin's pulse quickened further, his mouth dry with panic. He glanced desperately back at his friends, hoping for some kind of support, but they simply stood frozen, filming quietly, unwilling or unable to help. A sudden, irrational impulse to flee overtook him. Without thinking, Justin abruptly turned and tried to sprint away, heart pounding, desperate to escape his shameful mistake. Gasps echoed from the crowd as he bolted. But Justin barely made it 10 feet before strong hands grabbed him firmly, yanking him backward, spinning him around with practiced ease. His chest pressed firmly against the stone wall, his arms pulled sharply behind him, cold metal cuffs snapping around his wrists with ruthless efficiency. Cheers and applause broke out spontaneously among the watching tourists. Humiliation washed over Justin as he was held firmly, face pressed painfully against the stone, the sound of camera shutters and laughter echoing around him. The officer's voice spoke quietly in his ear, the tone filled with calm professional judgment. "Your little stunt just became a criminal offense. Welcome to consequences." Justin's heart sank deeply. He had crossed a line he couldn't uncross, one that would cost him dearly. Pressed firmly against the cold, unforgiving stone wall outside Buckingham Palace, Justin's heart pounded with a mixture of shame, panic, and disbelief. His earlier arrogance had vanished, replaced by a bitter realization that his reckless actions carried real and immediate consequences. Around him, the previously shocked crowd had erupted into applause and cheers. Cameras and smartphones captured every humiliating detail of Justin's arrest, forever preserving his disgrace. His face burned bright red, embarrassment overwhelming every other emotion. "Please, officer, I didn't mean it," Justin stammered, his voice shaky, desperate. "It was just a joke." The officer holding him firmly was unmoved, professional but stern. "Disrespecting a serving member of the military isn't a joke. You crossed the line." Justin felt the tight pressure of handcuffs locked around his wrists, the cold metal painfully real against his skin. His earlier bravado was now reduced to nervous pleading. "Can't we talk about this? I swear I'll apologize. I was just messing around." The second officer stepped closer, shaking his head, clearly disgusted. "Your apology won't erase what you did. You're responsible for your own choices." Behind him, Justin heard the voices of his friends, faint and hesitant. "Dude, he's getting arrested. Should we do something?" Another voice replied quietly, with embarrassment. "He brought this on himself. Let's just go." Justin's stomach twisted painfully. His own friends, the ones who had encouraged him just moments earlier, were now abandoning him, too ashamed or afraid to intervene. As the officers turned Justin toward their waiting police vehicle, he glanced one last time toward the royal guard he'd humiliated. The soldier still stood precisely at attention, unmoving, disciplined, his dignity fully intact despite the disrespect Justin had shown. The stains on his uniform only highlighted his unbreakable composure. At that moment, the depth of Justin's shame truly hit home. He had wanted attention and approval. Instead, he'd found only disgrace and isolation. The officers carefully placed him inside the police car, closing the door firmly behind him. Through the tinted glass, Justin could still hear the crowd's muffled cheers and applause, celebrating the swift delivery of justice. Inside the police car, the silence was deafening. Justin stared down at his trembling hands, realizing he'd made a mistake that couldn't simply be laughed off or forgotten. He'd thrown away respect and dignity for a moment of misguided bravado, and now the consequences had come crashing down upon him. As the vehicle slowly pulled away, Justin knew he'd have to face not only the law, but also himself, and the painful truth that some mistakes leave permanent marks, no matter how deeply one regrets them. Inside the cold, sterile environment of the police station, Justin sat alone in a small, bleak interrogation room. The distant sounds of footsteps and muted voices from the hallways served only to deepen his sense of isolation. With every passing minute, the seriousness of his actions weighed more heavily upon him. He shifted uneasily in his chair, hands clasped tightly on the metal table in front of him. The lingering sting of the handcuffs he'd worn moments before was nothing compared to the intense shame he felt. His bravado had evaporated entirely, replaced by quiet reflection and growing remorse. The door opened abruptly, breaking his painful thoughts. An officer entered calmly, sitting down opposite him, setting down papers carefully. The officer's face was serious, expression stern yet professional. "Justin Carter," the officer began evenly, eyes locked onto his. "You threw a drink at a serving royal guard. That's assault and public disrespect." Justin lowered his eyes, voice quiet, contrite. "I know, officer. I swear. I never intended to hurt anyone. It was a stupid dare." The officer leaned forward slightly, tone firm. "This isn't about physical harm alone. The Royal Guards represent dignity, discipline, and service to our country. Your actions insulted not just one man, but what he stands for." Justin swallowed painfully, his throat dry. "I'm so sorry. Honestly, I wasn't thinking clearly. It was just supposed to be a joke." The officer shook his head slowly, a note of disappointment entering his voice. "Actions have consequences, Justin. You made a conscious decision. Alcohol doesn't excuse disrespect." Justin nodded silently, understanding fully now that his recklessness had cost him far more than just embarrassment. The officer sighed, leaning back slightly. "Your friends have already given their statements. None of them supported your actions. In fact, they all distanced themselves from you." Justin's stomach dropped again, feeling the weight of betrayal and loneliness deepen. Even his friends had walked away, too ashamed or too afraid to stand by him. The officer continued calmly, clearly stating the next steps. "You'll receive a fine and be required to apologize formally. You'll be released soon, but remember, this incident stays on your record." Justin nodded numbly. "I understand." The officer gathered his paperwork, standing slowly. Before leaving, he paused, looking directly at Justin. "You came here as a guest to our country. Respect and dignity go a long way, far longer than a reckless dare." Justin met the officer's gaze, feeling the full force of those words. He felt deeply humbled, more aware than ever of his own shortcomings. As the officer left, closing the door quietly behind him, Justin sat alone once again, the silence heavy around him. He realized with painful clarity that he couldn't change what had happened, but he could learn from it. He had thrown away his dignity for a cheap laugh, but now he knew the cost, and it was far heavier than he ever imagined. The next morning, the sun shone softly over London, illuminating Buckingham Palace with gentle golden rays. The plaza bustled once more with excited tourists, their chatter and laughter creating a peaceful backdrop against the grandeur of history. Justin returned quietly to the palace grounds, walking slowly, his head lowered thoughtfully. No friends accompanied him now. No cameras, no laughter, no arrogance. Just a young man burdened with the deep humility of a harsh lesson learned. Standing at a respectful distance, Justin gazed silently at the royal guards, now clean and pristine, their discipline as unshakable as ever. He studied their faces, their posture, their unwavering commitment to duty. For the first time he saw clearly what he had previously dismissed: dignity, honor, respect, values more valuable than he'd ever understood. As Justin watched quietly, he noticed one guard in particular, the same one he had foolishly humiliated the previous day. Justin's heart sank again, remorse heavy in his chest. Yet, as the guard stood proudly, he remained utterly unaffected, perfectly disciplined, composed in his duty. A gentle voice interrupted Justin's reflections. He turned to see the elderly British woman from the previous day standing quietly beside him. Her eyes were kinder now, compassionate yet firm. "You came back," she remarked gently. "That's a start." Justin nodded slowly, voice humble. "I owe it to him, to all of them, to understand what I did wrong. I'm truly sorry." She gave a small approving nod. "We all make mistakes, dear, but not everyone learns from them. It's what you do afterward that defines who you really are." Justin absorbed her words carefully, feeling a small sense of hope amid his embarrassment. He glanced again at the royal guard, understanding now why his actions had drawn such harsh judgment. "I understand that now," Justin said quietly. "Respect isn't given. It's earned." The woman smiled softly. "Exactly. Remember this lesson. It will serve you well." With that, she turned, walking slowly away through the crowd. Justin remained, quietly observing the guards for a long moment, committing the scene and the lesson to memory. As he finally turned to leave Buckingham Palace behind, Justin knew he carried a valuable lesson, one learned through embarrassment, regret, and ultimately, growth. He had sought shallow approval and found only shame. But from that shame he had gained something far greater, the genuine understanding of respect, humility, and dignity. He knew he would never forget this lesson, and he silently promised himself that from now on he would strive not to earn attention but respect. Walking away, humbled but wiser, Justin Carter understood clearly for the first time that some lessons, though painful, were worth every moment of discomfort.